Hello everyone, welcome to the Bottom Line Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a closed meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. We ask that you silence your cell phones and pagers at this time, and please refrain from cussing when you share. Could I please have 3 volunteers to clean up after the meeting? Thank you. In support of AA Singleness of Purpose, attendance at closed meetings is limited to persons who have a desire to stop drinking. If you think you have a problem with alcohol, you're welcome to attend this meeting. We ask that when discussing our problems, we confine ourselves to those problems as they relate to alcoholism. Please join in a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'm an alcoholic and a member of this group. My name's Doug. I've been a member for almost 10 years now, give or take. Is there anyone here for their first AA meeting, just so that we may welcome you, or anyone visiting from out of town, or coming back, visiting the Bottom Line for the first time, or what? Anybody? Okay. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy. Neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. We're not going to read how it works or the traditions or any of that stuff. We're going to get straight into the big book here. I'm going to read Step 10 tonight. It's only like maybe a page and a half, the whole Step 10. But the thing is, you got to understand what it is that you're reading, because I think I read Step 10 a half a dozen times and had no idea. I thought it was, just another one of those pages with mindless babble on it. But then when I slowed down and I went to meetings over the years, I was pointed out to where that page and a half has a lot on there. There's a lot of work in that, and it's on page 84 and 85. 84 is where the promises of the 9th step end, and 84 in the middle is where Step 10 begins. And once again, I like to say these things because maybe someone wasn't here in the past or something, but the only place in Alcoholics Anonymous that you find the precise directions for how to follow through with these steps, how to do these steps, is in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. There are no other books. The 12 and 12, you say. It's got 12 steps and 12 traditions. There are no directions in the 12 and 12. They only make references and vague descriptions of things in there. They don't try to rewrite the steps. They just try to add to them in there. And there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't make any sense either. I've yet to hear anybody tell me that it did. I mean, some of the smartest guys that I've come across said just ignore it and stick to this book here and you'll be all right. See, I think I heard... if God is not in the equation, and if it's not in the big book, you can safely ignore it, and you will stay sober for the rest of your life. Okay, so Step 10 begins in the middle of page 84. This thought brings us to Step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory. Why do they say continue to take personal inventory? Because the 4th step, I've been told, the 4th step is the past. It's an inventory of the past, the selfishness and self-centeredness of the past. And the inventory of tomorrow and the future, today and the future, is the 10th step and the 11th step. When we get to the 11th step, I'll show you where there's one in there too. But we're fixing to be told exactly when the 10th step inventory is meant to be taken. It says... This thought brings us to Step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. That's the directions for when to do Step 10. That's why when we get to Step 11, it says to do another inventory when you retire at night. When you go to bed, when you retire, it actually says when you retire at night, you constructively review your day, the same way that you review it in Step 10 and Step 4. So the 10-step inventory, we vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past, which is Step 4 there. We have entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. So that's one of the things I like to point out was, I had the thought in my head when I was early in sobriety, and I said, you mean I got to do this for the rest of my life? That's a little more than I could handle right there. And then I heard somebody say, yeah, but at one time I wasn't taking a shower every day, and I wasn't brushing my teeth every day. And I like to use the analogy of some people almost, when I'm watching old Three Stooges episodes, they take a bath once a week, and that's how it was back then. It was like the Saturday night bath or something. And I got a lot of guys that come over from Mexico, and there's nothing wrong with it, but they don't take showers every day like we do here. And when they get over here, I know a lot of them sort of ostracize the guy that doesn't take a shower every day because he's like, not smelling good. And it takes them a while to get into the habit of doing like we do here, and that's, showering every day, brushing our teeth every day, and, doing whatever it is we do to take care of ourselves. And it's the same way with the inventory. Once you get into the habit of it, you may not be into the habit of it now, but once you get into the habit of it, it becomes second nature, and you don't even think about it anymore. That was something that I think Joe and Charlie had mentioned. I got that from the seminar, from those guys. And they're fixing to tell us all the steps are in step 10 right here. And we're fixing to see it right here. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Continue to watch for the same 4 things that are brought up in the 4th step. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. There's hundreds of defects of character. I hear that in meetings all the time. How will we ever stay on top of them? You don't. All you got to do is worry about these 4. These are, in the 4th step, described the 4 common manifestations of self, which are the most common, the biggest ones that are blocking us from doing God's will. That's pretty much how simple it is. The biggest defects of character that are standing in our way of our usefulness to God and the people in our lives is selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And that's the 4th step. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. So in the 10th step, you got the same inventory as the 4th step. And then it says, when these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. That's 6 and 7. You're entirely ready to have God remove them. You ask God to remove them. 6 and 7. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. Here's number 5. Step 5 in the 10th step. We discuss them with somebody immediately. Step 5, right there in the 10th step. And make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. That's 8 and 9. Made a list of the persons you've harmed and made direct amends to those people. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. That's 11 and 12 right there. So all those steps are right here in the 10th step. What's up, Joe? And that's really how simple it is. When I like to say, when I see the steps, I really don't see individual steps anymore. I see sort of 12 parts to the one big step that I see. And that one big step is to be free of self to do God's will. And that's just how simple it is. So the daily inventory, this inventory, the directions for the 10th step is as we go along. And that's got to be one of the biggest things that stood in my path over the years was I had heard people make vague references to this 11th step inventory, and I go, what, you mean there's another one? And the 11th step is simply when you retire at night, and the 10th step is the one that gets you in like noon, when you're doing something at noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you feel that whatever it is, it's a resentment that's burning in your head, or it's a fear that's driving you nuts. You got to take the inventory to be free of it right then and there, and apply the solution. That's one of the biggest things that I think that just slipped by me over all the years was apply the solution. I must have been 7 years sober before I heard someone say, apply the solution, and I go, solution? What solution is he talking about? And that's why I like to focus on that, because I hear a lot of people in AA meetings only concentrate on the negativity. They say like, well, you just got to make an inventory of your grosser handicaps or these negative things or something. It's not just an inventory. In the 4th step, it says clearly that in the 3rd step, it describes the 4th step and says, it says that this decision of the 3rd step, let me go back and read it right out of the book so you don't think I'm like ad-libbing here. It could have little permanent effect. This decision of the 3rd step could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in yourself which had been blocking you from doing God's will. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to the causes and the conditions. The cause of my alcoholism is selfishness, and self-centeredness. And these are the four common manifestations of self: selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. It's the same inventory as the fourth step. You go back to the fourth step and remember what it was that you did. You make the list of resentments, you make the list of fears, you make the list of harms done others and harms done others sexually. And it really, the better you are, the better I am at cleaning up the past, at cleaning up the wreckage as I go, the smaller this inventory gets. It's not like some big piece of paper every day. It's usually just one or two little items, unless you let it build up over time, and it just, like a week later, you got a big piece of paper you got to write on. Let me finish reading these are the promises of the 10th step. Somebody said in the meeting once their promises are all throughout here. We got the promises of the 10th step are coming up here. Right after we read 11 and 12, resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we could help love, and tolerance of others is our code. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as if from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That's the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. Now, all these we's, you see all the we're not fighting it, neither were we. That's when you hear a lot of people go, this is a we program. That for years used to irritate me like an itch on my back that I couldn't get to, until one day I heard somebody say what that meant. They said, what that means is we, the first 100. They're describing in this book, the first 100 alcoholics got sober and stayed sober. And they said, well, we're going to write a book about how we did it. That's why all those we's are up there. Not because you and I are loving and caring and we are going to... That just drove me nuts, man. I don't know about you guys. But when I heard that, that's what that meant. They're basically saying we, the first 100. Whenever you see those words we, remember that, because that's what it means. That's what it stands for. Over here. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we had been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. We are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of a spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. How can I best serve Thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. So that could be the 10th step prayer right there. How can I best serve Thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. Which is pretty much the same prayer as all the others. They all boil down to that same thing. Relieve me of selfish and self-centered behavior so that I can better do things for other people. That's what it all boils down to. That's how simple recovery from alcoholism is. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. Much has already been said about receiving strength and inspiration and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. If we have carefully followed directions, we have begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. To some extent, we have become God-conscious. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense, but we must go further, and that means more action. Step 11. And Step 11's the rest all the way to the end of the chapter, which is really only like 2.5 pages. So Step 11 is 2.5 pages, and Step 10 is a page and a half. But there's a lot there. It's not just, something that you just zip right by like I used to when I first came in. I read all that, I didn't hear nothing, it didn't make any sense to me. And then I slowed down and reread it and heard somebody else explain what each one of these things meant. So the 10th step is where sanity returns. The sanity that we speak of in the second step. Remember, when we go back to the second step and see that we believe in God, yes or no, is pretty much what the second step says. And there's another part to that which says, will God restore you to sanity? And the insanity that we're talking about is not insanity like loony bin insanity. It's years and years of that alcoholic drink just devastating my life, and I continue to say, well, it's been 2 weeks. I've been really good for 2 weeks. I bet I can have one this time. That happened to me for so damn many years in a row. I can't tell you. 5 years of absolute living hell smoking crack. And I'm an alcoholic, and I'm 100% alcoholic. I stepped out of that bar my last night in 1990. It was a block from here. I stepped out of that bar after about 5 hours. I spent like $400 on everything I could drink, and then I headed over to Cracktown that night, and here I am, 15 years later. So, the insanity that we speak of being returned in the 10th step. I believe that. I believe that the sanity has been restored to me, because I've been placed in many situations in my life where I can't believe I got out of there without using. I can't believe I got out of there without drinking. That's what got me to get into these steps the way I did about 7 or 8 years ago. That and some emotional pain that I was going through. And I felt, I had to do something, because feeling like that just wasn't an option. It's real simple. To go back to the 4th step, I don't know if a lot of you guys weren't here when we did the 4th step, but there's the 4 lists and the 3 solutions. The 4 lists are, and they're the same 4 lists and the same 3 solutions in the 10th step. So remember that we're not just looking to find this negativity. Go back to the 10th step for just a minute. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Okay. Now we go back to the 4th step where we continue to watch for those things, or where we found out how to watch for those things. And we see that resentment is the number 1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. And in dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, and principles with whom we were angry. And it's just that simple. Any day that I'm feeling resentments, I list people, institutions, or principles with whom I am angry with. And I do the same list that I did in the 4th step with it. And I apply the solution. Now that's what I was saying a little while ago, was something that I didn't hear for many years was apply the solution. It's not just a search for this negativity. I don't just sit down and go, okay, I sat down and wrote my resentments, now what do? How about putting a solution to them? The solution to resentments is to forgive those people for what it is I feel they've done to them. And the path to forgiveness is to see them as if they are perhaps spiritually sick. And it's a real simple process of understanding. The only way that I heard it put was, to make it real simple, was just look at my own behavior. When I was drinking and I was not thinking, what does God want me to do in this situation? When I wasn't thinking about stuff like that, I heard a lot of people that cared about me. I heard a lot of people I didn't know. I heard a lot of people that I worked with and knew, and somewhat semi-friends or whatever. But when I did what I did, when I stole from people, lied to people, and all the things that I did to hurt people, I was not thinking, does God want me to do this? Yeah, steal their car. That's what God wants you to do. I was not on a spiritual path. That wasn't. Therefore, when someone does something to me and it makes me angry, it's in my best interest, because I'm the one who's paying the price for that resentment, to say, okay, I forgive that person. He's obviously not spiritually fit, or he wouldn't have been doing that. That's how simple it is. How can I be angry at someone who's sick? That's all there is to it. Spiritually sick, we'll say. So that's the solution to resentments. So in the 10th step, we find our resentments and we apply the solution. In the 10th step, I look for fear, which is the second list that we know in the 4 steps where we found it. And fears are simple. You just write down the same basic fears that everyone has, and the 2 most basic fears are a fear that I'm going to lose what I have in life, and a fear that I'm not going to get what I want in life. And all the other fears can almost fall into one of those 2 categories. Like a fear of, someone repossessing your truck, getting kicked out of your apartment, losing your job, a family member dying of cancer, or your wife cheating on you, leaving you, whatever those fears might be. You just write them down. That's how simple it is. And I think Joe and Charlie said, look, just seeing your fears on paper will make half of them go away, because you're going to see just how stupid they really look. I mean, no one was thinking about firing me. It was stewing in my head. When I got around to seeing the boss, he didn't even know I was thinking for 4 hours he's going to fire me. I'm going to get even with that guy, And then when I saw the boss, he was like, there was no mention of being fired, and it was all in my head, and it was stewing up there, and it was just rolling like a snowball downhill. It was an imaginary fear that didn't exist. Therefore, I make a list of these fears and apply the solution. And once again, we got the 3 solutions to our 4 common manifestations of self in the 10th step, which is identical to the 4th step. So we're going to simply do it the same way. So I make a list of my fears, and one of the things that's important to understand is that all fear is based in self. Whatever fear it is that I'm having is a self-centered fear. A fear that I'm going to lose something. A fear that I'm not going to get something. It's all based in self. Therefore, the idea is that these 2 things cannot coexist in the same space in my head. And these 2 things are selflessness. If I'm selfless, then I'm probably not selfish. You understand that? So the idea of this faith in, I don't think I mentioned faith, but the solution to fear, the second of the 3 solutions, is faith in God. And faith in God works like this. It's real simple. You just do what it is that you're supposed to do. You find out what it is you're supposed to do and do what you're supposed to do. And when you get the results, you have to look back and say, they're right, it worked. I mean, that's what I said. I'm just telling you from my own experience how I came to this conclusion. Over the years, I've done the things that were outlined in these steps, and I look back and I said, I'll be damned, it worked. I had no idea. And when I hear people come into meetings and go, it doesn't work, it didn't work for me, and I go, well, you may not have done it right then, because I were years that I wasn't doing it right either. Somebody never explained to me the proper way of doing it. So, the solution to fears is faith in God, and faith in God works like this. You just do what it is that you're supposed to do, and you will get what you're going to get. And that's how how this works is, I'll read you exactly what it says for, and it's only like 1 sentence. Probably the most important sentence in here for me. The solution to fears says, we ask God to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be at once we commence to outgrow fear. So what that basically means is, like I was saying, that all fear is based in self. So you ask God to remove fear. It's that simple. God, please remove my fear. What do you want me to do? And what God wants you to do is real simple. Do things for the people that are in your life. Be there for them. Be the person that I was supposed to be before I started taking everything from everybody. I was supposed to give to those people, give my time, give whatever knowledge, give my financial help, whatever that I could do for those people in my life, I do. And I'm telling you, just my experience with it is that it works. Because when you're thinking about somebody else and you're thinking, what can I do for this person? Do I have all these other people in my life? How can I do this for them? I can guarantee you, you're not going to be sitting there going, damn, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get kicked out of my apartment. They're going to repo my truck. I'm going to crash my truck. My parents are going to die of cancer. My girlfriend's going to leave me. When I get home, all this shit's going to be gone. Something like that. All that stuff is no longer in my head when I'm thinking, what can I do for other people? Therefore, the solution to fear is faith in God. The path to faith in God is to ask Him to remove that fear and do what it is that you think He wants you to do. And at once we commence to outgrow fear. It really works. And you can't sit back in your chair and go, yeah, sounds like, okay, whatever, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. You have to go out and do it. What's it say? Faith without works is dead. If you don't do what it is that's outlined, then there's a real good bet you're not going to get what they're saying you're going to get. And that's all there is to it. So the third solution that we have to this 4 common manifestations of self outlined in the 4th, the 10th, and the 11th steps is, first of all, we're going to look at what the 3rd and the 4th ones are. The 3rd and the 4th ones, we'll go back to the 10th step on 84. It says it real quick there. 84. It says, this is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. So the last 2 we're looking for is selfishness and dishonesty, and they're going to be in the same list in the 4th step. They're all in one list, but the list is busted into 2 parts: harms done others and harms done others sexually. That list is the reason I was, it doesn't really say to break it into 2 parts, but the guys that I've heard said do it because the people that are in your life, your sexual partners, are a lot closer to some guy that you worked with for 2 weeks and you stole his tools or something, or whatever it was. There's a big difference between somebody you just knew for a couple of weeks and someone you spent 3 years with, living with. And that's why it's important to separate those people. Anyway, so we talked about the solution to resentment being forgiveness and how to forgive. We talked about the solution to fear being faith in God and how to have faith in God. And now we're going to talk about these last two, selfishness and dishonesty. And selfishness and dishonesty are found in the list of harms done others. The solution to these two is the 9th step, amends. Okay? So, the 3 solutions are forgiveness, faith in God, and amends. That's the solutions that Alcoholics Anonymous provides us with to be free of the things that are keeping me from doing what God wants me to do. In the 3rd step, I said, okay, I made the decision that I'm going to do what God wants me to do now. I did what I wanted to do for 26 years. It got me sleeping in the woods over here and not wanting to live anymore. And that's all there was to it. Now we're going to try it God's way. And this is what it was. I can't just step out the door and go, okay, here we go. We're going to go do God's way. We have this program of action that we have here. Where did they say it? It was right at the end there, I think it was. Oh, right at the end of the 10th step, just before 11. We had begun to develop this vital 6th sense, but we must go further, and that means more action. We got to do more action here. And the action is to do this inventory every day. The 4th step was to clean up the wreckage of the past and to gain an understanding of how to do this inventory in the future, in the present and the future. Okay? That was a real good way of finding out because, I mean, for me, I couldn't just sit in a meeting and get this. I couldn't read Bill Wilson's 4th step and then do my own 4th step. I had to do mine so that I could get an understanding of how I was going. I seen my family members' names. I seen my fears. I saw, my selfishness and my self-centeredness, my resentments, my fears. So, back to the 4th step just for a minute. You made the list of persons you've harmed and answered these questions. The questions are on page 69 in the 4th step. The sex inventory is on page 69. We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish and dishonest, inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Those are the names of the people for the 8-step list. When you go in the 8th step, it says, we have a list of persons we have harmed. We made it when we took our inventory. I've had sponsees come back to me and go, okay, so the names in my resentment list are the names I'm going to make amends to. I said, no. The names from the harms done others list are the names that you're going to make amends for. Why do you need to make amends to somebody you had a resentment against? They didn't even know you had the resentment. You don't. Maybe if you did something to harm them, if I had a resentment against somebody and I harmed them, then they belong on both lists. They belong on the list of resentments and on the list of harms done others. Therefore, from the list of harms done others, they'll go to the 8-step list and the 9th step amends. Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it. That was the one little paragraph for those 2 lists of the 4th step that answer those questions right there. Got this all down on paper and looked at it. So, once again, now I've got the names of the people that I have hurt off of this list. So I take those names and I apply the solution of making the list of those people, taking those names, and then I make amends to those people. And once again, back to the 9th step, no one can actually tell you how to make those amends. There are many descriptions of amends within the pages of the 9th step in the Big Book Alcoholics Anonymous. And they're simple things. If you owe somebody money, you pay them back, even if you can only do a little bit. And if you can't make amends at the expense of somebody else, you can't tell your girlfriend that you slept with her best friend and then they're off on some big tizzy, and they don't ever speak to each other again. You can tell her that you slept with somebody, but you can't say, well, it was your best friend or something like that, You can't make amends to clear your conscience at the expense of someone else, and that's all there was to it. And it's the same way with all the other amends. You can't tell the boss you stole all his tools and one of his other coworkers was with you or something. You can tell him you stole them if you want, but anyway, I say that because I stole my boss's tools a couple of times. I can't really come up with someone else's list. I have to come up with my own. So once again, all the other steps are within one paragraph in this description of the 10th step. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. That's step 4. When these crop up, we ask God or wants to remove them. That's 6 and 7. We discuss them with someone immediately. That's 5. And make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. That's 8 and 9. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. That's 11 and 12. Love and tolerance of others is our code. And they're all right there within the 10th step. On page 84 at the bottom there. And I can't tell you how many times I read through that and it didn't make a bit of sense to me, and I got all the way to the end of the page 165 or something and said, man, it didn't make it. I didn't see anything in there. Didn't see a damn thing. So, once again, something I didn't bring up was, because it's something that I didn't hear for years, was what was it that I was expected to get from the amends of the 9th step? Amends is what I do, but I'm expected to get something. When I forgive people for my resentments, I forgive them for what they did, that's to free up that time in my head that was spent with all that anger going on, okay? The whole idea here is that getting these things out of the way frees up the time in my head to think. When I get to step 11, we're going to go over that. When I get to step 11, I think, what do you want me to do, God? And it's going in my head now. It's saying something like, well, you got a couple of family members who need you. Go be there for them and give them your time and give them some financial assistance if I can, do the best that I can. Or, do whatever I can. I'll go rake leaves or some shit when I go home for Christmas or something. Or I'll fix something around the house or something like that. Whatever it is that I do is the things that I'm supposed to be thinking about, not stewing in resentments. When I'm stewing in resentments, it's a selfish thing, and I'm not thinking about what I can do for other people. That's why I got to be free of resentments, because it's taking up so much time in my head. It's the same thing with fears. When I'm thinking about myself all the time, and these fears are dominating the thought in my head, and I'm at work, and all I'm thinking about is, whatever it is, the fears that are going on in my head. Freeing up the time in my head that I'm spending on those fears frees it up so that I can think and do what God wants me to do. Remember, in the 3rd step, I made the decision to do God's will. I can't just say, well, yeah, I made the decision to do it, and I'll go back to the 3rd step there and tell you again what it said there. It's real simple. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, this is real simple too. The decision of the 3rd step. It doesn't say that, but that's what the decision they're talking about. Because this is the end of the 3rd step and the beginning of the 4th step. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect. So sitting down when I got sober and saying, okay, I'll do God, I made the decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. It will have little permanent effect, unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in myself which had been blocking me from doing God's will all along. Before, I was thinking only of myself. I was full of resentment. I was full of fear. I harmed other people out of selfishness and dishonesty. I harmed other people. Actually, I believe there's one thing I didn't bring up, and that is that all of these things are based in fear. When I harmed other people, I did it out of fear. I took from them, and it's when you make the list that you begin to see that. And all resentment is based in fear. So the whole reason why all alcoholics drink, the reason why I drank, was out of fear. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to the causes and conditions. Just finishing up that real quick. So I said that the reason for the resentment list is to be free of resentments because it's taken up all that time in my head, and that's a selfish thing to be thinking of myself and not to be thinking about others. And then I make that list of fears and I apply the solution to be free of those fears because it frees up the time in my head so I can think about what God wants me to do for other people once again. And that's the whole idea behind the 9th step amends. Remember, I was saying the amends is not the end in itself. The amends is expected to get me to a point in my life in which that there's one more thing in my head. There's a couple of other things in my head that are taking up all this time. And I would have told you that it wasn't in my life, that it didn't matter to me. And that is guilt, remorse, and shame. The way that it was put by the guys who taught me how to do this was, it doesn't say it in here, but the reason that I make amends is to free up, because that's why the promises are after the 9th step. Remember what it says, we will be amazed before we are halfway through with these promises, with the amends is what it says. And some of my favorite, there's a bunch of promises there, but the ones I have highlighted is it says, we will lose interest in selfish things. We will gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. What whole attitude and outlook upon life is it that is expected to change? Is that I am not thinking about myself anymore. I was thinking about myself all the time, and that's what was wrong with me. Therefore, when I think about other people and do things for other people, then, I'm free of these things that were dominating my thought, which basically was fear, and it drove me to drink. The fear drove me to drink. So my whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. That whole attitude and outlook is, I used to think that everybody in this world was put here so that I could get what I wanted out of this world while I was here. Now my whole attitude and outlook of life has been changed. I now feel that my reason for being here is to be there for the people that are in my life. My family, the people I work with, my friends, and the AA people that I come to. I come to these meetings, and I've got a couple other meetings that I go to. And I try to say things that are always based in, solution. Instead of sitting around going, poor me, I had a bad day. Which is what I hear a lot of, man, I tell you what. And then you know why? Because a lot of people tell their sponsees, they don't know what to do with them. Answer the phone, go to a meeting and share. Click. That's their solution to it. That's horrible, man. When my sponsees call me and start crying and whining, I go, whoa, wait a minute. Let's stop a minute here. What are you, stewing in all this stuff again? I taught you how to do the inventory. You don't have to sit around and think about this stuff all the time. It's just stewing in your head, this resentment. You're angry with your boss. You're angry with your girlfriend. You're angry with this coworker, whatever it is, and you call me up and you say, woo-hoo, wah. And so I tell you flat out, I say, okay, wait a minute. You act like you don't even remember the damn inventory that we went over. I got you through all 12 steps, and you're going to call me with these problems? Who am I? I'm just another human being, Christ. I can't absorb all that stuff. I get 5, 10, 15 sponsees calling me, telling me all this stuff. I'm going to stop them in their tracks and say, dude, man, apply the solution. I taught you how to do it. The only thing I can think of was that you called me because you forgot. So I'm going to remind you. Remember the solution that we had. The solution to be free of resentments, the solution to be free of fears, the solution to be free of the guilt, remorse, and shame for my harms done others out of selfishness and dishonesty. Written here, we continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And there's not a whole bunch of them. It doesn't go on and say, and a couple of hundred others, like I've heard in meetings. Oh, there must be 100 of them. Just start writing them down. Man, that drove me nuts. I'd have been drinking years ago if somebody didn't make it more simple than that. And it really is. Remember, and back when it first started, it said most good ideas are simple back in the third step. And that's the cornerstone of our program of recovery. Most good ideas are simple. I'm not sure that's exactly what it says, but that's pretty close. Where was that? I know it's in the third step. Anyway. Oh, here it is. It's right about in the middle of the third step here. He is the principal, we are His agents, He is the Father, we are His children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we pass to freedom. Freedom from alcoholism. Freedom from being 2 weeks sober and going, geez, it's been 2 weeks, I bet I can drink one. Where'd that come from? I don't know about you, but I spent 5 years telling myself that, continuing to go down in the gutter every time I said, I think I can have one. It's been 6 months. And that insanity left me a long time ago. And that's the insanity that returns in the 10th step. Go back to the 10th step for just a minute. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol, for by this time sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as if it was a hot flame. And why does that happen? Because the very thing that made me drink, the fear that we speak of, the fear that's at the basis of these resentments, the fear that made me harm other people out of selfishness and dishonesty, that fear is no longer at a level that I need to turn to a drink to put it back down where it needs to be. And Joe and Charlie, I like to say that too. Joe and Charlie had a little thermometer that they passed out to everybody. It was a little page, and it was a thermometer of fear, basically like a little Geiger counter of fear or whatever for all of us, for all alcoholics. And they had this line in that thermometer that said anything above that was a level of fear that may require alcoholism to bring it back down to a level, and anything below that was a level of fear that was sufficient for recovery from alcoholism. And that was pretty much what it boiled down to. So remember that the exact opposite of fear is faith. And someone once said half measures availed us nothing, and that's what they're talking about. Half measures availed us nothing refers to the fear that drove me to drink and the faith that's going to keep me sober. Half measures of trying to get that faith in my life that He's there and He's going to take care of everything. There's nothing to worry about. All I have to do is try to find what it is He put me here to do, which is be there for the people in my life. And it's really that simple. It's real simple to me, but obviously it's not real simple to a lot of people, because I see a lot of people just don't make it. But hey, I spent 2 or 3 years going in and out, and I might have been one of them guys where somebody said, a lot of people just don't make it. There you went again. And one day I stopped. That's all there was to it. One day the pain that was caused by drinking alcohol, the fear, I guess I would have to say, the fear of taking another drink gave me a small, brief period of sobriety. And with that brief period of sobriety, I said, hey, will you take me through the steps? And someone took me through the steps. That's pretty much what... When my sponsees call me and they say I drank again, what do? I say, drink up, huh? Drink up. And when... I'm serious, it's a heart attack. When I say drink up, and then I say something like, when you get ready, when you get a couple of weeks of sobriety, when you get a week or so and you haven't had a drink in a week. Why? Because you're so afraid of picking up that drink, I don't want to do it again. So the fear gave me little brief periods of sobriety, but eventually the fear that got me sober would come down to the point that the fear of drinking outweighed the fear of not drinking. Someone said there's 2 ways to stay sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. One of them is fear of drinking. The other one is a faith in God that everything's going to be okay. Which one do you want? Do you want to have fear of drinking? Fear of drinking could last you 5 years. I've heard people say Haas used to come in here and say, I had 4 years, 10 months, and 11 days. I can tell you exactly how to stay sober for 4 years, 10 months, and 11 days. But if you want to stay sober for 4 years, 10 months, and 12 days, you're going to have to ask somebody else. And that's what he meant, I guess, was that he had stayed sober for 4.5 years, whatever it was, out of fear. And eventually, the fear, you got them 2 fears, a fear of drinking and a fear of not drinking. One of them, surpassed the other, and he drank. All people do, I guess. Unless it's replaced with a faith in God. And that faith in God is pretty much you do what it is that's expected of you, and you get what it is that they say they're going to get. And I can vouch for that because it's happened to me. Like I said, I've been in many situations where I can't believe I made it out of there. That was years ago. Nowadays, I got no problem with it, It doesn't really bother me anymore, because someone once said, too, that you can't stay sober today on yesterday's, what the hell was it they said? Spirituality. Spirituality isn't really something that you build up and build up and build up. It's something you have to do every day. I can't say, well, I got spiritual for the last 3 years, but the last 2 months have been really selfish and self-centered, and I've been thinking only of myself again, and it doesn't work like that. I have to stay on this path I just constantly remember that. Actually, I tell you what I got. I got a thought in my head that says something like this. Look, I lived for 13 years I was drinking, and about 5 or 6 of those years were real, absolute living hell. And I remember, I say to myself, that those were the years where I thought only of myself, and I really didn't care much for the people that were in my life unless there was something they had to offer me, whether it was a place to stay or money or dope or booze or whatever it was the only reason that I had those people in my life. And that was a selfish, self-centered way of life, and I don't ever want to go back to that. And I got this way of looking at my life today now as if my only reason for living, because when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't want to live anymore. So now my only reason for living is to do what God expects me to do. And it's a simple thing, is to just be the person I should have been. That was another confusing thing that I had heard over the years was, people would give you things. I heard somebody say, I don't know what God's will for each and every one of us is different. No one has any idea what God's will is. You just have to, go with the flow. And then I heard some guy say, God's will. Oh, you don't know that? It's simple. You were supposed to be somebody. I was supposed to be somebody, and I was not that person. Therefore, that was not God's will that I stole from the people who cared about me. It's that simple. It really is. I was supposed to be there for them. I was supposed to grow into an adult and start exhibiting that adult behavior, not be a 26-year-old man who still acts like he's 13 years old or something, you know. That's pretty much what my life was. Anyway, so the only reason I have for living today is to be there for those people. And with this inventory of the 10th step, it brings me that much closer to being there for them, because I'm free of the selfish and self-centered resentment and fear. I'm free of those 4 common manifestations of self. And then when I get to the 11th step, like next week we're going to get into that, I pray for one thing and one thing only. That's something that I didn't hear for years too, was, well, you can pray for other people so long as it's not, you can pray for, they said, you can pray for yourself as long as, I forget, it's in the 11th step or something. It's really contradicts the way that I see prayer now. When I read that you will pray for only one thing in my life, and it's real simple. You see, God's going to do God's job, and all I have to do is what He intended me to do. So for me to stand around and go, God, I think you ought to do this, I think you ought to do that, and oh, by the way, maybe this would be nice and that would be nice, stop this person from dying, get that person sober, no more tsunamis with 200,000 dead. Who am I to tell God how to run the show? I need to concentrate. I can't even run my own life, but I want to sit here and try to tell God how to run things, right? That's basically what that step is saying, is I pray only for the knowledge of God's will for me. I pray only for what He wants me to do. And it's real simple. I just be the person that I should have been. That's how simple it is. Anyway, I'm going to open up the floor. We got 15 minutes if someone would like to share on step 10. We're going to do the 1 potato, 2 potato thing. Eeny, meeny.
Robert, alcohol guy.
Hey, Robert.
What I'm getting at is what you're saying is if you turn what you're supposed to be over to your higher power, God, and take care of, instead of being selfish, take care of the people. You don't have to pray for selfish things for yourself to God. He'll automatically take care of your needs without you even noticing what you're getting until they happen. And then all of a sudden, it would be like, I'll see things eventually come my way where I wasn't even expecting them, just by giving myself towards some other human being, caring about him instead of being, like you say, hung up in your mind and worrying about this, and wanting this, and wanting this. And what I've experienced is that. Is that exactly what you're saying is happening? That God will give you things that instead of praying for, like you just say, I want this, I pray for that, or like the tsunamis, or selfish things also, that things will come to you by God, by your knowledge of God, asking for His knowledge to help you help people is your goal now, right? Is that what you're saying? As far as helping someone, or your main interest right now is to help other people in Alcoholics Anonymous and show them the steps and how to understand it. And because you're doing this, things will be given to you by your higher power, because you're not selfish. You're not praying for that. Is that what you're saying?
Well, as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, that's what I'm in here to do now. I've heard people say over the years, when you go to an AA meeting, are you there to contribute to the meeting, or are you there to get something from the meeting? And I thought about that over the years, and I was always there to get something from it. So, from now on, AA is just an extension of the rest of my life. Wherever I am during the day, I'm trying to be there to put into it instead of take out of it. And as far as, God putting the things in my life, I can't really, those things, I got to tell you, when I came in here, you know what I had? I had a pair of sneakers. They were smelly. I had a pair of blue jeans. They were smelly. They were unwashed when I got out of the clink. They sat in a bag for like 6 or 8 months while I was locked up in there. I mean, who am I to say I don't have enough stuff today, man? Anything this side of the woods for me. I got to tell you, whenever I lose something and something's gone and I go, oh man, somebody stole my this or that, I go, shoot, man, I'm lucky to have anything. Anything this side of the woods and them smelly clothes I had is a gift, man. I got to tell you. So for me to sit back and say, well, I don't have a $500,000 home and I don't have a big yacht. Yeah, man, I got to tell you, I got peace and serenity, and I got a feeling about myself that I'm okay today, that I'm a pretty good, decent person, and that's what I get from AA meetings. Whether or not anybody in here gets sober or not, I mean, I'd like to see everybody get sober and stay sober, but that's God's job. I'm not going to sit here and go, well, that one should stay sober, and that one, and those 200,000 people in Indonesia, can you bring them back or something, or not do it again, or, geez, I couldn't even run my own life. So for me to think about, all that stuff, I try not to think about it, because that's just one more selfish thing in my life. Remember what I said? The fears were, the two basic fears in life of everybody almost, are that I'm not going to get what I want out of life. So I'm sitting around going, well, I don't have that $250,000 home, that $500,000 home. I don't have a couple of new cars. I don't have this and that and that. I mean, that's in the fears list, to be free of those fears. I don't know. I heard Jim B say once, he said, I've never been myself. He says, I've been rich in recovery and I've been broke in recovery. He said, well, I would much prefer to be rich, but, I want to be peaceful and content if I am broke. So I'm going to stay on this path toward doing God's will so that I get that peace and contentness, which comes from, an inner feeling that I get that I'm a good person today, which I didn't know I had. The 9th step amends were to be free of guilt, remorse, and shame, to clear away that stuff, so that when I ask God, in the step 11, what do you want me to do, I don't have guilt, remorse, and shame blocking the way when I receive the answer. That's why the 11th step has an inventory too when we get in there, which is when we retire at night. And that's exactly what it says. Once again, the 10th step inventory, the directions for step 10 say quite clearly as we go along. It doesn't say, at the end of the day, you review your entire day, because that's what step 11 says. There's an 11th step inventory. And I didn't hear that for years. That's why I bring that up, because I was unaware of that. Therefore, I think maybe some other people were unaware of it too. But I think I lost kind of what the question was, which is basically...
Well, it wasn't really a question. I was sort of like agreeing with you,
oh, okay.
But I wanted to understand a little more. Like, if you give yourself more towards your fellow human being, God will give you gifts in return.
I can tell you one thing. When I don't get the things that I think I ought to have in life, I'm still a lot more content than I would be if I was sitting around...
It's just like things will build up in your life that will make you satisfied with what you're doing. And that's what you're doing right now.
I tell you, a trip to the beach on a day when there's not a lot of people there just makes everything go away for me. I tell you, I used to sleep on the beach. Believe me, I'd go to Big Daddy's, get drunk, and sleep on the beach, and the cops would wake you up with the flashlight. Hey, what are you doing here? Take you to jail about 3 out of 4 times. Take me to jail anyway. Anybody else want to share with us? We got a few more minutes.
Yeah, when I was all, my name's Kurt.
Hey, Kurt.
All the years I was drinking and drugging, I spent a lot of it drowning my conscience. What's right, what's wrong, the hell with it. I'll just drink and everything will be okay. But in that second part of the 10th step, it says we were wrong. When we were wrong, we promptly admitted it. And, for me to know when I'm wrong about something today, it's like, and not just so I've got a conscience again, but a lot of times I go, well, where did that come from? Well, a lot of it I think is, through God, letting me know that it's the wrong thing to do. And that, I need to pay attention to that and be aware of it. And, that's the way I tend to look at it, because it's a positive way for me to constructively look at this, in my life. I mean, today it seems like there are two variables. There's just a positive and a negative. When I get around negative people or something, I pick up on negative vibes. It brings me down, and I need to stay positive for a lot more of the solution reasons than anything else. So for me to have a conscience again and know when I'm wrong about something and then be able to address it, let alone be aware of it. For me, that's a big step. That's like a miracle in my life, because I spent so many years drowning all that out and not caring. I stole from my parents and did all that stuff too, and a lot of that was out of fear, and I wouldn't be able to keep drowning my conscience and everything. But it wasn't the right thing to do, and I knew it at the time. And this is just a lot better way to live and everything, and every day doing the 10th step. I think every time you go to a meeting, for me, if I sit objectively in a meeting, I'm emotionally, I can pretty much look back on the day and I think about, like to reflect like where I might have been wrong. And a lot of times it's not easy for me to admit where I was wrong because a lot of times I want to think I was right. A lot of times I'm not right, you know, especially where I've had some experience doing something in a job or something. You know, I think to an extent, like a lot of other people, I'm in a big search of that justifiably right. You know, I was right. How important is it? But it's not that important in the end. You know, I just wanted to throw that out because it helps me stay aware of, you know, when I first got back in the program, somebody said that sobriety was a different state of consciousness and awareness. And I'll tell you, I think that's a real understatement. Because it's like today, I'm saying, to Kenny yesterday, I was saying, you know, for me, to keep focus and perspective on myself and know when I need to address something in my life, to stay sober, and then to attempt to talk about faith without works is dead. You know, to me, that's the gist of it. You know, if you know what you have to do, you do it. If you don't do it, you're going to go out again. And, you know, it helps me to say that because I need to do that a lot too. You know, I do that a lot too. So thanks.
You know, the biggest problem that I had going through all these inventories was that I would always look at the other person's part. You know, well, you know, that SOB did that, so I don't owe him any amends. You know, I have a right to be resentful at him because he did this or she did that. And then it was brought to my attention that this has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the other person. It was brought to my attention that it was only my part that I look at. Because if I justify my behavior, I'm going to end up right back where I was. You know? And if I know that my behavior was wrong, then I need to make amends for it. No, it doesn't matter what the other person did. And then when I go to make the amends, I'm only there for me. I'm not there to get an attaboy. I'm not there to get praise. I'm there to relieve myself of the bondage of all of that trash that I'm carrying around. I just went blank. Oh, I remember now. You know, when I was brand new, and I was living in this three-quarter house, and I would tell somebody, you know, when you do that, it really annoys me. And then they would do it again. Okay? And then I would cop a resentment at them. All right? And then I tell them, well, that's another time. And then it was brought to my attention that I do that for me. I don't do that to change the other person. I do that to clear my chest. To keep from feeling, you know, we get rid of the garbage. You know, like Doug said, we need to work on it every day so we don't fill the bag back up. You know, and that was a cycle that I went through for a while. Until I really understood that I don't consider the other person's behavior. I only consider my own. I mean what I say. I say what I mean. I mean what I say, but I don't have to say it meaning. And when somebody offends me, I let them know not to change them, but to keep myself from forming a resentment. If that made any sense.
All right, we're going to, real quick, what's one thing I didn't bring up was Step 5 says when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 10 says when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. And one of the things that Jim B said was that wrong, what he's saying is that God's will is right, self-will is wrong. When we were wrong, when we were full of self-will, we promptly admitted it. And another thing was, let's say I don't do my inventory and I turn to God and I say, what do you want me to do? The chances of me getting a selfish answer, something based in self, something I'm going to do for me, something I'm going to get out of this world, you know, I'm going to get what I can, it's going to be much more likely that I get a selfish answer than if I do this inventory, be free of self, and turn to God and say, what do you want me to do? That's really how simple it is. That's the whole simplicity of all these steps, is to get selfishness out of the way and ask God what to do, and then I'm more likely to get the right answer. And it says that somewhere. We'll get into the 11th step next week, and that's probably where it says it. I'm learning a little more about the book all the time, but would someone like to do our chips for us tonight? We got a whole bunch of NA chips here, 30, 60, 90, 5 days, 10 days.
I'm alcoholic. I'm alcoholic.
Hey, Matt.
So they said it last first time. We'll do a white chip here. It's the surrender sign. You know, instead of waving a white flag, you come up and you get a white chip. You don't want to give up. Anybody? All right. Are you ready? And the first chip you earn is a silver chip for 30 days. You got 30 days of all right. Yeah, that's rich. And then 2 silver chips make a gold chip. 60 days consecutive. Anybody? All right, keep going back. Red for 90. Anybody? 90. Holidays included, right? 6 months. Change of seasons. Change colors. And then keep going back. Purple for 9 months. Anybody? All right, keep going back. Give yourself and your higher power hand.
I forgot the baskets again. Cough it up. And that air conditioner. Baskets are being passed in accordance with our 7th tradition that says we got to keep the electric on and buy the coffee and get the air conditioner going and all the lights and everything. And anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all of our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Anonymity was meant to be kept at the level of press, radio, and films, not above the level of press, radio, and films, and not below the level of press, radio, and films, but at the level of press, radio, and films. And we'll close in the usual way. Lord's Prayer.
So, a moment of silence.